Hi, welcome to another Expert Insights discussion. Today we're joined by Peter Brower from Get Into More and Trevor McLean from Event Temple. In this interview, we ask, how can the hotel industry really talk about total revenue management when such little focus is placed on optimizing meetings and events revenue? We explore the importance of M&E revenue, the correlation between M&E revenue share and technology adoption, challenges and opportunities that exist within M&E revenue management, and finally, we look at the negative impact of legacy technology and the role more modern hotel technology can play as we look to the future. Really hope you enjoy the conversation. Hey both, thanks for joining us today. Peter, Get Into More, Trevor at Event Temple. Really appreciate you giving up your time. Always like talking about the meeting and event space because it's never really an area that seems to be focused in on as much as probably I feel it should. And that's really what we're going to lean into today. And then I know that you guys are actually working together from a technological point of view. So at the end of our conversation, I want to kind of pick into that a little bit and understand how that's working, how you guys coming together can actually help benefit the hoteliers. But I guess let's kind of kick this off and maybe get you just both to introduce yourself. Peter, I know you've been on before, but for those that may have forgotten you, I'll come to you first, and then Trevor, I'll come across to you for just a short intro. So over to you, Peter.
How could they forget me, right?
Exactly. I mean, come on, go back. I'll put links in the videos below.
All right. No, thanks for having us again, Trevor. And indeed, I'm working for Get Into More, which is a BI tool specifically for M&E related businesses. And we've been up and going for quite some years now. Went through the whole startup, COVID, and startup again. For the last, well, say 7-8 months, we've been really focusing on new integrations in order to scale up our current platform of customers, and we're giving them all the analytics that are used and can be used and should be used in order to optimize their M&E revenues.
Perfect.
There you go.
Nice quick summary. Trevor, over to you. No pressure.
All right. Great to meet a fellow Trevor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Event Temple, we are a modern hotel sales and catering solution. So what our focus is on being a very easy to use, learn, and buy solution that's integrated, scalable, and very focused on the customer needs of hoteliers all around the world.
Perfect. Very good. Okay, so let's get into it. M&E. So everyone talks about total revenue this. I heard total revenue mentioned 20 years ago, and they're still going on about it and still hasn't been done. But the thing that always interests me is whenever I see people talk about total revenue, they always say, and there's just SPA and there's this. And I'm like, where's the meetings and events revenue piece in this? So this is a two-pronged question. One is a simple yes and no answer, and the second then follows on to why you gave the answer that you did. So the first question is M&E revenues. Is it really taken as seriously as it should be? And depending on your answer, it's then justify your answer. So let me go to you first, Peter. Is it taken seriously enough? And if so, yes. If not, why?
Well, from our perspective and our customers, definitely a big yes. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. No,
Absolutely.
But I think when you look at it for the complete industry, I think it's debatable. There is a large number of customers, hotels that are out there that do have the right attitude in having these M&E streams really as a part of their total revenue streams, and really comparing it as a big chunk of their business. And these are also the type of hotels that are doing well, obviously, because they're focusing on it, which are also open for either new systems, new analytical tools, and also very market driven. They would be, seeking for information to optimize their revenues. The most important part that we see, and what I see in the industry as well, is that after this whole COVID situation, when they thought and they sort of proclaimed, well, the meeting and events or the whole events industry will be under pressure. Well, we proved them wrong, which is good. I think that we can all tell that we want meetings. We liked it to have, as a in between solution, to have this digital or whatever it was through Zoom meetings. But sitting together, that's the most important part. And these revenue streams that are coming in, it's amazing to see how much of the percentage of the total revenue it is. In some cases, you would have actually go from 15% as the lowest up to 30, 40, and even 50% in some cases of hotels or event locations that have really big revenue streams, and they cannot be ignored. And even if you would like to ignore them, you can't, because there's demand out there, and that demand is showing that revenues are needed and can be optimized.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'll pick up on some of the points you've mentioned and come back to you. But first, to that initial question, Trevor, is it taken seriously enough or not? And if not, why not? If it is, great. Why do some more enlightened people take it seriously?
Sure. And I'm going to play a very similar answer to Peter's. And because what we really see, and based on studies we've done on it, it's sort of a 50-50. It's a tale of two worlds. And if anything, it feels like the gap's really widening. So there are the ones who take it. There are the ones who take it very seriously.
Yeah.
And they're approaching it in a very modern way. We're seeing things like revenue management approaches to their meeting space, and like very serious sales approaches, adding technology to augment and improve their meetings. And then we do see others who are still kind of staying where they were in the past. They're kind of saying, hey, it's an add-on, it's cool, it helps us sell guest rooms.
Okay.
And I think that gap, from what we see, it's getting bigger between the two, right? Because I can speak to this. I mean, when we first started, there wasn't a lot of people in our space in technology, like working with meetings and events folks. And now I would say it's quite surprising. There's quite a few folks out there trying to help drive more meeting and event revenue, and they're being adopted by many modern hoteliers.
Do you find there is a difference? You mentioned earlier, Peter, about how the percentage of revenue, sometimes it could be 10-15% of the hotel's revenue, it could be 50%. So picking up on both of your comments, is there a correlation that those who have approached it in a more sophisticated way are maybe looking at technology to help them tend to fall into the category where a significant chunk of their business, maybe, if it's over 35-40% of their business, they take it a bit more seriously than if it's 10%. Just talk to me a bit about that. Either one of you, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, that really makes sense. We can see that as well, that the majority of the big bulk revenue M&E generators are far more interested in getting either tools to help them put everything in, because like we all know, meeting events is a very sophisticated and difficult department to work in, because you have all these people that you have to work with. So if you can, first of all, optimize that within your sales and catering tool, so that you don't lose a lot of time with putting in data and all that sort of stuff, and optimize on that time frame. And at the same time, if you then see with your revenues what is coming out there, and you want to analyze that sort of stuff, you can really see that the more revenue you get in, the more interest there is to optimize it either on workflow or on outcome. And having said that, there's also maybe within the smaller revenue generators, these hoteliers that really want to sort of get into new stuff and also adjust to new sorts of ways of working with new tools. So within, even though the gap is big, but within that smaller part of the revenues, there's always these frontiers, people that will say, I also want to be part of the.
They look a bit like outliers, but they're actually the forward thinkers in that sense, aren't they?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And Trevor, your kind of angle and take on that, are you seeing the same thing? Those with a significant revenue stream are those that are more sophisticated, and it would seem natural to me that would be the case.
That is like definitely more of the natural picture. I mean,
Mm.
as a provider myself, like typically we definitely will see a lot more conversations and a lot more people taking it seriously at
Mm.
a point in which they are it's driving a more significant portion
Mhm,
of their revenue.
mhm.
I think
Mm.
that's what we would always expect because of it. Like you said, if it's 35% of your revenue, you're going to spend a lot like trying to really optimize that.
Yeah.
Mm.
But we do see some of these groups now, especially with the adoption of modern systems, in which you're seeing much more specialization,
Mhm.
where they are starting to take, even if it's a smaller portion of the revenue, they're taking it more seriously and they're getting more
Mm.
specialized solutions as opposed to kind of a light little add-on for their PMS where they can
I've
like
got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
block a room or something. And now they're saying, hey, no, we need something that's a little bit more powerful so that we can actually make this a revenue like
That,
Yeah.
generator.
that makes sense because
And
I mean, sorry, go on, Peter.
yeah, and I think also in those ones that maybe have the smaller parts and maybe even the smaller meeting rooms capacities and that sort of stuff, they are also more interested in having everything moved to online.
Hmm.
So they would actually have instant booking confirmation. And with some of these legacy systems, it's not that easy to integrate.
Yeah.
They are open for it. They don't always have the IT or tech solution to do it, but that part is going to be very interesting to follow how fast it will go and also how much money you can get out of it,
Mm.
not only on the revenue side, but also on the cost side. Because, if that flows into your system without, making a contract for 10 people for half a day in a boardroom could take you maybe an hour and a
Yeah.
half versus 5 minutes or 10 minutes when it's online.
I was going to say one of the things that we've touched on before, Peter, is everyone's used to doing room revenue. It's
Mm.
kind of
Yeah.
that's it. We've
It's in our
grown
core.
up with it. Yeah, it's the core of the business. Whereas we've discussed before, how do you evaluate? Is it revenue per square meter? How do you actually develop a KPI? You've got where, if you're doing it from a cost, where are the costs associated? You've got various different departments are getting involved when there is a meeting. I mean, is it how much does the actual complexity around meeting and events and the workflow to handle that business, how much does that just become so much more of a distraction that it's actually, I haven't got enough time to think of anything else. We just want to get this business and deliver this business. Where does that workload fit in?
If indeed, I mean, what we see now for the last couple of years, in principle, like in Europe or Benelux, the inquiries that have been coming in over the last couple of years have been increasing with 20, 25, or even 30%. So the workload that comes in is a lot more than it was before. Unfortunately, we have staff challenges with finding the right people to actually cover that workload. So the complexity on top of the complexity of having to work with all these different departments within the hotel and looking at your demand and looking at your pricing and whatever is taking place in an M&E department, the complexity makes it even more complex if you don't have systems to support you in a very easy way to understand, first of all, to put stuff in, get your analytics out, and then make decisions. And I think that has been even getting more difficult than 5 years ago, not only because of the things that we just said, but also the demand of the customers is a bit more demanding than it used to be maybe 5-10 years ago. We're not looking for the standard boardroom with a coffee and like a cookie next to it. It's even that part, they want to have an experience for the same of amount as before, but still, do a regular meeting, so to say.
I've got you. And Trevor, your kind of view on it, because one of the things I was trying to join up my first question and this question is, okay, if 30, 40, 50% of my revenues is in meetings, I'm going to spend the time to try and nail that down and get it right. if it's slightly lower, do I get caught into that? I just don't have time. We've always done it this way. I've got my systems set up. Where do you see workload having an impact, and where are areas where the technology can help in terms of the efficiencies and way of working?
Yeah. So I think the number one thing that a lot of people need to recognize now, since I mean, we're 4 years past COVID, but it's
Yeah.
changed a lot. And one of the number one things it did was the way that people work, right?
Mhm.
So what we're really seeing now is this rise of much more smaller meetings, like, and way more often. And people want to do like a half day.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to stay. They just need a place to meet, right?
Yep.
Because people don't meet and work all day at the office together, so they need to get together. So I think what the challenge will be for a lot of hoteliers is this higher output of inquiries, like Peter was saying, and they're
Yep.
small. But
Yep.
Mhm.
right now, where
Yeah.
we
So
see
now
is
it's a
like
volume thing, isn't it? Yeah.
the volume's rising, but then we're like in this other tide of lower amount of staff to handle this rise
Yeah.
of inquiries that are also
Mm.
not necessarily higher value, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
big tickets are the big tickets. They'll
Yeah.
still be there. They're
Yeah.
back. We're seeing
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And they're great. It's good to see that that rebounded. But these small ones now, there needs to be a faster way to work on it.
Yeah.
And there needs to be that way to manage it. Because also, I mean, I'm sure we've all seen these ones on LinkedIn as well too. Like people don't want to go through and like a huge contract to book the room for a half a day. They're like, hey man, just let me book the
Yeah.
meeting
I
room.
just
Like
need
I
to.
see
Have you
it's
got a
there, just
meeting
let me
room?
do
Yeah. Is
it.
it free? Let me have it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like let me book it. I see it sitting empty. Like how
Yeah.
do I just like let me book it for the
Yeah.
day,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I think what we need to do is find that balance of how can it be easier for the guests, but
Mm-hmm.
also still be maximizing revenue for the
Mhm.
hotel, right? You can't give it away. You can't
No.
just do it for too cheap, or else then we're in a trouble. Like, and it's a spiral that's to the
That
bottom.
makes that makes sense, and I guess that's. And Peter, please add any points to this. But I guess that's where also having analytical insights into your M&E business kind of helps
Mhm.
inform, because the whenever I mean, Peter, we've had numerous conversations. Trevor, you're adding another layer into this. It's like, so I've got the level of M&E business coming in. I've then got what type of meetings business is it? If it's a big event that maybe requires contractual involvement, fine. But if I'm just a local business
Mhm.
that's trying to get my sales team together because they've all been working remotely, I just need a meeting for an afternoon. Well, I don't need a lot of paperwork and a lot of hoops to jump through to
No.
get that, do I? So it's kind of understanding as a hotel what your meetings business is, and then what works in your property, and then what you've got set up. So I guess that is
Mhm.
where having information
Mhm.
becomes valuable to help you try and reorganize and restructure how you're going to respond to that. Is that fair? Is that right? Have I got the right end of the stick?
Yes, you
Kind
do.
of.
And yeah, no, you're very right. And the good thing is that when you have a team that is willing to work differently, not only the old-fashioned way, like Trevor mentioned, with a big contract for a half-a-day meeting room.
Hmm.
We have some examples of hotels that have these, meeting rooms for 5 to 10 persons, and it's not easy sometimes to put them on a platform and then just let them go in. And so there's a couple of hotels that actually put them on a sort of restaurant table booker
Okay.
platform,
Yeah.
which every restaurant is familiar with, every hotel restaurant is familiar with it. So they've tried that out. It's super simple. It's up to 8 persons, for instance. You
Yep.
book it in. It's 25 euro per person. They book it in. It comes in as a reservation
Okay, I
within.
see. Yeah.
It's super simple
Yep.
because you're not going to charge them with a contract. It's like, I mean, sometimes they would spend more on your restaurant where you don't ask a contract, for instance,
Exactly,
than
that they
if
would
they
in a
would come
meeting. Yeah.
into meeting room. And that way of thinking that was really like an epiphany for these people. We said, we've booked now 5 people in the meeting room. It brings us whatever, 100 euros, no contract needed to get in there. Then afterwards, they would go actually to the restaurant and drink and eat something and spend another 200. So
Yep.
go figure.
Yeah.
And if that's on a smaller scale, okay, we're not going to do that for 50 people, obviously, because operationally that's not going to fly. But on the other hand, if you would have, like Trevor said, if you have 20 of those a week, and they just come in and you don't have
Just
to work on
easy
it,
to
and
book
it's
it.
integrated with
Yeah.
your sales and catering system, fine, you know. And on top of that, about silos, you know, then front office is involved because it sort of comes on their stick, and then M&E sort of, okay, I don't have to deal with these smaller meeting rooms. We can focus on the big fishes or the other ones that are a bit more complicated. So the diversity has to be embraced, and just by a bit trial and error. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And most of the times, the simpler, the better.
And Trevor, your take on that, should I say?
Yeah, I mean, simpler, better is always the approach, right? Like typically that's how everything tends to work. The best answer is usually the easiest. It's the most likely one, right? I think, yeah, there will never like be this case like Peter said, you don't give away a 50-person room, right?
No,
Like
no.
that is crazy. It's bad for the hotel, it's bad for the guest who buys a decision like that, right? And that's even what we've seen in our world. We always would say that we're like, no one's gonna book their wedding online. Like that's crazy.
That's a good one,
right? Like no chance. I don't know
no.
a single bride that would do that, right? So I think it's about augmenting what can be simplified and augmented and simplified and automated so that you can spend more time on the complex, right? Because the complex needs the time and it's a better experience when you give it. But if you're also spending half your day writing these like contracts with 10 people, that's crazy. You can't do that.
No, and I guess it makes a lot of sense. But hotels aren't always geared up to do that, are they? And I guess half of the problem is back to they're still operating how they were pre-COVID. And we always use it's like there was this major event, wasn't it? Everything is pre or post-COVID now, is when we reference it. But it's like their operational structure, how the sales team work, what systems they've got. I mean, I guess if back to the original point where you spoke about how you're seeing this diversion, I guess unless you look at it and want to do something differently, and if you don't do something differently and stick with your existing systems, then those existing systems aren't geared up to A, provide you information that you could make decisions about, and B, be quick, easy, and effective to use to pivot to a different way of people booking that meeting space. Would that be accurate? I mean, you're the ones dealing with these clients. Is this what you see, that those legacy systems in a way stop them being flexible, aren't giving them information to make the commercial decisions they want, are in a way almost driving them to have to do things the way they did because they're almost locked into an operational model? Maybe I'm simplifying it a bit.
No, I think it makes sense. Trevor and I, we talked about it because we see also there's quite a difference in these pioneers going into this more like modern sales and catering systems in Europe, whereas maybe in Northern America, it's a bit more the traditional way with the legacy systems, which is sometimes indeed preventing sort of the way of working and getting your data out in analytics. What is clear to see is that not the innovators, but more the people that really are motivated to do and optimize whatever is needed within the sales, M&E, or room revenue part. You have these agile people, and there's no generation for that. No. I mean, it goes from whatever to whatever, and you can clearly see that the ones that are eager to find out that they can change their way of working through systems, because if there's anything that we've learned, not only pre-COVID, but we've seen that the hospitality industry, technically wise or digitally wise, we are sort of like mine workers. It's these legacy systems puts us really back in the Stone Age, and that has gone now quicker and quicker because there are new people on the market, there are new systems on the market, and they are there, and they are supported by the innovators within the hotel industry that don't want, the legacy system, that want a different way of working. And also these people, if they are leaders, they would motivate their teams as well in order to, bring out the best for them and have much more fun in work. Because I mean, what fun is there in contracting 50 of these 10 rooms, 10 packs meeting rooms? That's no fun.
No,
I mean, to be honest, it's like, just do it as usual. So I think the fun factor is also linked, and it becomes then also more attractive as an industry, because otherwise we're back to the Stone Ages again.
And Trevor, to your view on how legacy systems are kind of potentially, and I mean, okay, for everyone that's watching this, we know there's a vested interest because you guys, but what we're trying to do is to connect the dots to say, hey, look, it's not just me selling you a solution. You are actually potentially being locked into a very inefficient and ineffective way of working because of how you are set up at the moment. And I guess that's the bit we're trying to convey, is how that restricts, how that can hold them back. So I'm interested in your take on it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's what you're saying there. I think, like, to us, what we see is like how a vendor approaches it. And I think that there are more what you could call legacy vendors that are approaching with a modern view. To us, it's like, it really seems like integrations is the key one. And then what we really see is like there's kind of two markets, right? Like North America and Europe is very different. I've worked in both markets quite a bit. And I think it all actually comes down to how they can make decisions, right? Like, Peter mentioned the agileness. I think that actually comes from being smaller in a lot of ways. Like,
okay, interesting.
they're not locked into huge brands, right? And they don't have to kind of go with like, hey, this is what the standard is. They can make decisions and be like, this is what we're going to try out. Whereas I think sometimes in North America, you do see a lot more proliferation of brands, and then you've got to stick with the standard. But that also means that it moves a little bit slower. Because we definitely notice we have much more integrated properties in Europe than we do in North America. And they're also like using a solution like ours in a much more like extensive and like a stronger way, and they have more optimized workflows. So I don't know if it's always the providers, which is maybe a strange thing for me to say as a modern provider, but I think it's about how it's implemented, how it's used. And I think, in my opinion, I think if hotels are allowed to make a little bit more of their own decisions in North America, you could see them actually really optimizing a lot more. But I think they get stuck sometimes.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot. And as you say, the European market is very different to the North American, where North America is so heavy branded, and European less so, and so in a way, you're almost, through that, it forces the competition. The brands have to respond a little bit quicker because they've got a lot of other hotels that aren't branded that can move fast, can adopt technology, can be innovative, and they've got to respond to that, or they're going to lose out. I guess one of the other things that leans into when we come right back to the beginning, when we were talking about total revenue, and we look at how we have become more sophisticated with our rooms revenue, again, I feel there's like a big disconnect, because if I'm sitting here operating in the way I have done in my meetings and events, I've got this really sophisticated rooms revenue piece going on over here, and here I am in my M&E, and I get my request coming in, and I'm sitting there and going, how do I price this one up? And it's like, again, it feels as if you're just living in two worlds. We all operate in the same hotel. We have space available. Some of those groups are going to need rooms probably as well. So how's that being tackled? I mean, there must be a massive disconnect.
Yeah, I think in that respect, okay, we came afar also with rooms, right? You know, in way back when we had nothing, and we were sort of, you know, putting in Excel some stuff and then say we have the high season, the low season, and let's put £10, $10 or €10 up when it's on a weekend day. And that has all been automated. The easiest part with the rooms is sort of how to get an RMS up and running, because there are these differentials, but the differentials are sort of the same in a way. They're either, you know, competition, market related, inventory related. With M&E, it's more complex, as we said before. There's a lot of things happening there. Effectively, there is also, especially now with the new technologies that have been, you know, been used for the RMSs for the rooms, that can also be because of these new integrations that Trevor was mentioning, because we didn't have these M&E sales and catering integrations in the past. And you need integrations and data in order to set up a system, an RMS system for your M&E. So that has been evolving pre-COVID, during COVID, and obviously now definitely. And that is super helpful in building up and making an RMS that is, you know, really using data that has been put in, obviously, in the sales and catering system by the M&E teams. And the more that is automated, the better it will be. And if these systems can learn and give you recommendations, that will be tremendously helpful. And you will win again time as well, because you would actually, and security, I think also for the M&E people, it would give them sort of, okay, I have now this system. I'm just going to ask, does it make sense if I quote this meeting room at that price? They get a confirmation, they send it out, and whenever there's a backup needed, they could say, what we did with the RMSs for rooms, you know, we got this here, over there, and that makes sense. And we tend to rely on these rooms RMSs very flawlessly. We say, okay, for that day, it indicates that room. And that, I think, on the long term will also be the same for the meeting rooms, for the M&E. And that would also help for these online reservations coming in, because then you can just put these packages.
The price is just there, isn't it? Just
exactly,
yeah.
Exactly. So that's like the future world.
That's what you're dreaming of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, we discussed it together with Trevor, because we said, wouldn't that be like, you know, you go to a website, you just, you know, plug in your dates, and then it comes up, and you're good to go.
And well, to that, Trevor, that's TG. How are you seeing the evolution from decisions being made historically on like a gut feel, the disconnect between the room's revenue and the meetings? How's it evolving?
I think Peter's got it like perfect, right? Like, I mean, when you're talking about where it's going, it just needs to be, as we try to offer ways that are more simplified for a guest, you have to have your own safeguards, right? You need to have these safeguards in place. You can't give it away. You can't also maybe sell a bunch of these like 10-person meetings in like the biggest conference week in your city. That's kind of silly. You shouldn't do that, right? No. So you're gonna need safeguards to make sure that you're selling these at the right price on the right times. But I think there's a lot of fear around this. Like, if you're selling space online, because you're like, what if I give it away? But like, what if you actually fill the space up when it's sitting empty all week? That would be kind of nice, wouldn't it? I think you might make a bit more money. But I think when we have things like when we have safeguards with knowing that you've optimized it with revenue management, well, now you're not saying, are we giving it away during the week, and is this bad? Should we have just left it empty? Now you're going, okay, well, we're getting a good price. We know this is making us profit. It's profitable space. And it's being sold, right? So I think we're at the really beginning of it. And we're already seeing like really modern groups start to utilize these processes. Like, we're seeing like a group like Strawberry. They're starting to really like, not only do they sell their meetings and events, but they're also offering it online, and they're also getting ways to like really maximize their event revenue.
Makes a lot of sense. Again, it's funny how these bits all link back to our earlier conversation about total revenue, because as part of that, everyone's spoken about how not only do you need to be looking at the revenue, at all the revenue streams, but also you need to start to be a bit more commercial, and we need to break down the silos between the sales and the marketing and the revenue. And so I guess, where does M&E and the M&E team, if you have a separate team, are you seeing that is being drawn into this commercial team, this commercial space, or are they still kind of outliers?
I think awareness is the most important thing here, and not only awareness of the work that they're delivering, but actually the revenues that they're delivering, and showing them what the impact is from their work on the contribution to the total revenue. I think that's really helpful. Whereas in the past we used to really make Excel calculations and say, what did we do this week or whatever. Now, with the platform that can be used, you can have instant information on a lot of data, looking where you are, looking where you are now, where you should be going, and finding these targets for these M&E people as part of the commercial team. I mean, any commercial team would work with targets, otherwise you're not very commercial, I would say, right? What we see is that the new systems actually encourage M&E people to be part of the commercial targets, and actually become motivated to reach these targets, because at least they know what's expected revenue-wise from them as well.
Yeah. And Trevor, you're seeing the similar, because you must be right in the core part of this, aren't you? With your solution.
I think the core of anything, into what even Peter's saying, is like, people do what they're graded on, right? I mean, it's pretty normal at work. I don't think anyone goes into their work and is kind of like, I don't want to do anything. Not really. Like, people go in and they want to be good at what they do.
Yeah.
So they work on what they know they're measured on. And I think, like, removing ambiguity there is always key. Like Peter said, if there's targets and you know that you're part of this bigger picture and this bigger goal, it's exciting. It's fun. People want to be a part of something.
Yeah. True.
So being able to just show and deliver that is so important, right? Like, hey, this is where maybe we have a total revenue goal, and this is where meetings and events is playing into it. This is where they're at on target. They got to be, let's make sure that you set reasonable targets. You can't set it too so stratospheric that everyone's like then devastated,
demotivated.
Yeah,
exactly.
True.
But that balancing act, if it's there and it's measured, it's exciting when you start with.
It makes a lot of sense. So how do you, coming back to you two and your companies, your technology, because independently you're probably all working to address the points that we've been touching on. So understanding what's going on, understanding where you are, understanding where you should be, that's looking at getting that analytic insights helps you to be making those decisions, looking at incorporating being more commercial, looking at being more efficient about how you're handling things, simplifying ways of being able to inquire, book. I mean, that's where you guys sit, if I understand correctly from our conversations. Where does the coming together? Talk to me about how this partnership between you guys helps your, not only your existing hotel clients, but obviously any prospective ones that are hopefully watching and listening here and thinking, hey, maybe I should be like the F1 car, it's all about data in F1. And you saw all of these people that really lent into design and data to identify how they could get the competitive edge, and then they were beating some of the most established brands because they were just doing things the way they've always done them. And in much the same way, you're looking for those new clients that want to be innovative, understand that there's information they can be using. So how do you two coming together help to make that happen? How does the integration between Getting to More and Event Temple bring value?
Well, first of all, we would not exist if there wasn't an event temple, because we have to integrate with a sales and catering system. So we would be clueless without them. So that's one. And I think like Trevor already mentioned, I mean, integration is key, right? And the thing when we get together is that we both the companies believe that we can be added values for each other. I mean, the things that we can work on together is actually providing M&E sales commercial teams with a full-on service about meeting and events, not only the input in a very elaborated sales and catering system, but also the analytical part without a lot of difficult systems going in the back end. It's really one-on-one with integrations and what we mentioned before as well with these online reservations is that whatever is happening in one system is then also mirrored in the other system. So the way that we work, that we started up these companies differently with different angles and different insights, but there is a lot of things that we actually overlap, and the things that we need from each other are the crucial ones, and then we can help for the the niche thing, so to say, for Event Temple. And Event Temple is one of the easy ones to integrate with. It's not a legacy system like we just discussed that needs, I don't know how many tick boxes before you finally get it. An open API is like a dream come true for systems or companies like us, because it's easy to work on, and also the culture. I think we're all looking in the same direction. We all have the same view of what we think should be happening within the M&E industry, and that helps to the forces to get even stronger, so to say, between us.
That makes a lot of sense. And Trevor, Event Temple, how does Event Temple help hotels, and then how does bringing Get Into More, as Peter said, they kind of need you to feed them so they can feed back. So how does Event Temple then utilize Get Into More to add even more value?
Well, we all need each other. And I think like for us, one of the number one founding pillars of us is to be a very integratable solution, because that is so key today, right? Old tech didn't talk to each other. And you had to work in all these silos, but silos is like causes so many problems in businesses, as anyone could probably attest. So we all need to work together a lot more. And integrations are such a key way to do it. But I really do think like when we look at Get Into More and working with Peter and his team, what's so great is it reminds me of like earlier days of revenue management with PMS, right? Where you're changing the way that you work, you're changing the way that you do this, and you're becoming much more sophisticated. Database decisions are very important, and they help everybody, right? Like not only can it help the guest because you can get a great deal when you should, which sometimes doesn't exist today, but it also helps make sure that the hotel's protecting themselves and growing their revenue at key times too, and not giving away space when they shouldn't, and making sure that they're optimizing their decisions, right? So I think it really benefits everybody. It helps make people meet more, which to me is so essential, and it's great. Like, I think the more that we get to do that, the better the world is.
Brilliant, guys. Really interesting to have the conversation with you. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And let's hope to get you back on again in the future. Well, I hope that conversation was of interest, and thanks again to Peter and Trevor for joining us. If you have any thoughts or views on this conversation, please feel free to comment below. If you like the discussion, please don't forget a thumbs up. And if you're interested in more of our videos, here is a link to our Experts Insights playlist, and here is the link to our Coffee Time Chat playlist. And here is the button if you'd like to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. Thanks again for watching.